नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते कृष्णदासकान्ति नाम नमो प्रपात्मकप्रेमदिके नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नाम्नि नमस्ते सरस्वते देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे हरे कृष्ण. So we are in 25th verse of second chapter. Second chapter is contents of the Gita summarized, and we see that Krishna begins to give his instructions from this from 11th verse of this chapter, and before that Arjuna and Krishna were like friends, cousins, but from 11th verse onwards, voluntarily Arjuna accepts the position of a disciple, and he accepts Krishna as a spiritual master, as his spiritual master. So, first thing that Krishna is saying in all these verses is what? We are not this body, but we are spirit soul, and he is giving characteristics of the spirit soul. So, 25th verse is again regarding the characteristics of the spirit soul. Okay, anyone of you would like to read Mataji's?
Hare Krishna Mataji, may I read Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita 2.245. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvanam nanu shochitam arashi. Children, avyakta, invisible, avyam, this soul, achintya, inconceivable, I am this soul, uchyate, it is said, tasma, therefore, evam, like this, viditva, knowing it well, enam, this soul, now do not, anushochitam, to lament, arhati, you deserve. Translation. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Purport. As described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that it should be seen even by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. As far as the soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti, or Vedic wisdom. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. There are many things we have to accept solely on grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father based upon the authority of his mother. There is no source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison to the infinite Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is infinite, and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the finite soul or the supreme personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways just to confirm the stability of conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Okay, very important things are mentioned in the purport. So, in this verse, Krishna is further mentioning the characteristics that the soul is invisible. Already um, it seems some are like repetitively mentioned, the characteristics, but again I think the last statement in the purport makes it very clear that repetition of something is just because it is very important, and to remind us again and again. So the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. There are no changes. We saw earlier in the previous verses also that the body goes through different changes like birth, then grows, then reproduces, then dwindles, and then it's over, like with death. But the soul, there is no such changes. There is no birth for, first of all, for the soul. There is no growth or anything. So that's why it is what, um, unchangeable. It is as it is, like eternally. The Supreme Lord, as the Supreme Lord is eternally existing. Like there is no time we can trace when the Lord came into existence. No. Similarly, living entities are also always existing because they are emanated from the Lord. And the spirit souls, because it is spiritual, so there is no concept of merging, or so, just like the Mayavadis may propose, but that is not correct. Prabhupada mentions in the purport that the magnitude, we have also discussed the magnitude of the soul. Does anyone remember what is the magnitude of the soul? Anyone remembers? Okay, the magnitude of the soul is mentioned as 1 by 10,000 part of the tip of the hair. So there is no such instrument which can measure such a dimension. Even if the scientists may claim to be advanced, they have no such instrument which can measure such a small dimension. So from that point of view also it's invisible, and from the point of view of, like, it's spiritual, but our we are contaminated. Our eyes, our senses are all contaminated. So it is not, we cannot see in one sense. Just like Krishna is also present, but we cannot see with our contaminated eyes. So similarly, the spirit, soul, spiritual, the being, we can understand from the scriptures. Probably when we stand in front of the mirror, we are just seeing the body, we are not seeing ourselves actually. Further, Prabhupada is mentioning, as far as soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti. We cannot just like the modern scientists claim, if there is God, you show me. They may ask, like, if you say there is God, then where is your God? Show me your God. I mean, it is so crazy. Even air we cannot see. We cannot see. We can just perceive its presence, but we cannot see. So material things are like that. Then what to talk about the Supreme Lord or the spiritual, the spirit soul, the existence of the spiritual, this spirit soul. So we have to understand it from the higher authorities, that's the scriptures. Just like Prabhupada gives the example, if one wants to know who is his father, then one has to go and ask the mother. She will say, okay, he's your father. It's not that, okay, I'll experiment myself and find out who is my father. So that's crazy. So on the authority of the mother, one accepts, okay, yeah, he's my father. Similarly, on the authority of the Vedas, which are our, it is said at the time of initiation, the spiritual master becomes our spiritual father, and the Vedic scriptures, they are our mother. So based on the authority of the Vedas, we come to know about the, we understand about the spirit soul and our actual eternal, the Supreme Lord. Similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. Soul is consciousness and consciousness and conscious. That also is a statement of the Vedas. So from even if one may say that okay, I don't accept the authority of the Vedas, from logical, from practical point of view also one can understand the difference. There's some difference between the spiritual and between the a living person and a dead body. So that is the consciousness. So from where does that consciousness come? That is actually the symptom of the spirit soul. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in in the soul, and that's why it is immutable, or at some places mentioned as unchangeable. The supreme soul is finite and the atomic soul is infinite. The supreme soul is infinite and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. So supreme Lord is infinite. There is no, we cannot say okay, supreme Lord is this much or something. We can't measure anything. And the spirit soul is infinitesimal, means very 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 small. There's a huge ocean, and okay, Indian Ocean, nearest one to us. So maybe some of you would have gone south, extreme south to Rameshwaram and all, you would have seen. So Indian Ocean, it's a huge ocean, but a drop of water, if you take a drop of water in your hand, so the quality is same. If you taste some water from the ocean, or you take a drop of water and taste that, the taste or composition is same. But what's the difference? The quantity. It's a drop of water, and that's the ocean on which huge ships, like but on a float, or on this drop of water which you have taken in your hand, you can't make a ship float on that. So the difference is in quantity. Similarly, we are infinitesimal, very very small, like that drop of water from the ocean, and the supreme is like that huge ocean or infinite. However, there is similarity in quality. The difference is in terms of quantity. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul or the Supreme Lord. So this we have to understand from the scriptures. Okay, we'll move on to the next verse, 26th verse. Anisha Mataji, are you available to read?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, so okay.
चैनं नित्य अजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसेयं मृत्यं तथापि तव महाबाहु नैनं शोचितुम् अर्हसि. Word meanings atha if, however, cha also, enam this soul, nityam nitya jatam always born, nityam forever, va either manyase you so think, pritam dead, tathapi still, evam you mahabau almighty armed one, now never, enam about the soul, so chitam to limit, arhasi deserve. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed God. There is always a class of philosopher, almost akin to the Buddhist, who don't believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, it appears that such philosophers existed and they were known as the Lokyatikas and Vaibhashikas. Such philosophers maintain that life symptoms take place at a certain mature condition of material combination, The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by the interaction of the physical and chemical elements. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many pseudo-religions now becoming fashionable in America are also adhering to this philosophy, as are the nihilistic, non-devotional Buddhist sects. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul, as in the Vaibhashika philosophy, there would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments the loss of a certain bulk of chemicals and stops discharging his prescribed duty. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted for achieving victory over the enemy. According to the Vaibhashika philosophy, the so-called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. So in any case, whether Arjun accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is an atomic soul or he didn't believe in the existence of the soul, he had no reason to lament. According to this theory, since there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment, and so many of them are being vanquished every moment, there is no need to grieve for such incidents. If there were no rebirth for the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected by sinful reactions due to his killing his grandfather and teacher. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabau, mighty arm, because he at least did not accept the theory of the Vaibhashika, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjun belonged to the Vedic culture and it behooved him to continue to follow his principles.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Okay, so Krishna is saying further that if, however, you think that the soul or the symptom of life will always be born and die forever, so actually, there are certain, even at that time there were certain, not only right now Kali Yuga or something, but earlier also there were sections of groups of people who were kind of just like the Mayavadis, or who never believed in the existence of the soul, like the theists and all. So such people were always there. Of course, in Kali Yuga they are more prominent, but earlier yugas also they were present. So Krishna is, though he knows that Arjuna has no such concept like he's quite, he's Aryan, so he actually knows the purpose of life, or he's not atheistic in one sense, but just is giving for, because Arjuna is just is representing a conditioned soul. So there are people who believe that okay, the soul or whatever life, it is there's birth and death for it. You still, so Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you still have no reason to lament. So why is that? Prabhupada is explaining the purport. There is always a class of philosophers almost akin to the Buddhists who do not believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. So Buddhist philosophy is also similar to the Mayavadis. The only thing is that after liberation, for the Buddhist, after liberation everything is void, it's all zero. And Mayavadi is like okay, after liberation it's all one. So in one sense it is similar to some extent, because there is no concept of merging or nullification. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, it appears that such philosophers, so at that time also there were such people, and technical terms mentioned for them is Lokayatikas and Vaibhashikas. Such philosophers maintain that life symptoms take place as a certain mature condition of material combination. And if you see that book of Srila Prabhupada, Life Comes from Life, That is a best book. I mean, of course, everywhere it's mentioned, but specifically dealing with this section, that the modern scientists mention that okay, life comes from certain combination of chemicals or matter, but that's not true. Actually life comes from life is spiritual, and there is no concept of if the scientists take some chemicals and do something in the laboratory they can create or life. No, that is not possible. The modern materialist scientists and materialistic philosophers also think similarly. So present so-called intelligentsia section of people, like the scientist or so on, they also have such views. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements. So in does the soul exist, there is one um, session in Discover Yourself. There are a series of sessions for the newcomers. So there is this um, one seminar in that, does soul exist. So in that, one of the slide I was seeing was um, some scientist or someone, some doctor, someone, he mentioned in his statement that the human I mean the body is made of chemicals. So logically, if we see, okay, you may take XYZ, you may make a list of chemicals that is present in the body, and you may find their quantity and you can find their rate. Okay, so let's say total is like to get all those chemicals and all, it's 100 rupees, for example. So is that the our value is just 100 rupees? If really we are made up of chemicals, we're just chemicals, and just some combination of life comes up like that. So is that our value just 100 rupees? Uh, so that part is more in detail explained in that seminar. So here we can see, so that content is taken from these sections of Bhagavad Gita only. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage of life, symptoms develop by interaction of physical and chemical elements. So that is totally like a sane person will not accept it. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many pseudo religions, now becoming fashionable in America, also adhere to this philosophy, as are the nihilistic, non-devotional Buddhist sects. So before Prabhupada went to America, there were many people who claimed to be spiritual leaders or yoga gurus and all that. They went to the West, but they were not giving the spiritual science. They were just uh, you know giving all such kind of Buddhist philosophy, Mahavadi philosophy, and so on. But none of them was actually giving the scriptures or what Krishna mentions the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul, now of course Arjuna, he knows what Krishna is saying, and he's not an ignorant person. He knows that there is the existence of the spirit soul. But in case if he doesn't believe also, there would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments for the loss of a chemical. If somebody's child meets with an accident and leaves the body, so why the parents cry? One can say, oh, I mean, they can think, okay, this is just a combination of chemicals. Why should I cry for a combination of chemicals which worth just 50 rupees or 100 rupees? That makes no sense to say that life is made up of some chemical combinations. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted for achieving victory over the enemy. According to the Vaivashika philosophy, the so-called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. Yeah, Prabhupada also mentions, sometime back I was hearing a lecture. He was mentioning all these, I think he was mentioning about Professor Kotosky or something like that, when he went to uh, Moscow, I think. I don't remember exact location and all, but yeah, he was mentioning his, even he was saying that, Swamiji, everything is over after death. So Prabhupada was mentioning, see, so the great philosophers, or you know, on that high level of kind of intelligent personalities, but this is a concept that there is no life after, no, with death everything is over. So Vedic conclusion. So, in any case, whether Arjuna accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is an atomic soul or did not believe in the existence of soul, he had no reason to lament. So, either way, Arjuna had no reason to lament. According to this theory, since there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment, and so many of them are vanquished every moment, there is no need to grieve for such incidents. If there were no rebirth for the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected by sinful reactions. So, very nicely it's mentioned. So, in the first chapter, we saw there are a few reasons that Arjuna gave why he doesn't want to fight the battle. Like the woman will be polluted, and then I'll get sinful reactions, and so on. And so that particular point of getting sinful reactions, that is kind of refuted here, because if there is even if he believes that there is no soul's existence and all, so after death there's nothing, there's no rebirth. No, if after death, as we discussed, that there are sections of people who believe that after there is no existence of the soul, or everything becomes void or something like that. So after death everything is over, so one will not get any sinful reactions. So of course these are for because such sections of people are present, so Krishna is giving these particular points. But as we know properly, that we know very well that there is birth after death, there is no concept of annihilation of the soul, because we are already discussing this point that the soul is unchangeable, eternally existing, and so on. If there were no rebirth for the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected by sinful reactions due to his killing his grandfather and teacher. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabaho, which shows that um, I mean, Krishna knows very well that Arjuna is not going to take the side of such atheistic philosophies, because he at least did not accept the theory of Vaivashikas, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture, and it behooved him to continue to follow its principles. Okay, so I'll stop here. I request if you can share some points from these verses, though we are discussing the similar points in all these couple of verses, just based on the point that, how different characteristics of the soul, and why Arjuna shouldn't be lamenting, and Krishna is kind of inducing him or wanting him to fight the battle. Okay. Wasn't Arjuna lamenting because he was attached to his family members? Yes, he was. He was attached to his family. Of course, as we saw that he is representing the conditioned soul. So yeah, from that is also one of the, how can I, as he was mentioning, how can I kill my own grandfather, my own teacher, my own cousins, all these family members. So yeah, that is also one point. There were, but specifically, if you see, I think 4, 5, or 6 something reasons like he gives, um, and one of them was about sinful reactions. Yeah, this attachment is also there, and he was also mentioning, if you remember, that okay, if I win the battle, everybody will be dead. So who, with whom I'll share my victory, with whom I'll share my happiness? So what is the use of such a victory? So he was mentioning in the first chapter, if you remember. So yeah, these are a few points. Let me know if that helps. Okay, thank you, Mataji. Okay, anything else, Matajis?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Uh, my question is, Mataji, is soul and consciousness the same thing, or if it is different, then what is the difference between a soul and the consciousness? And is subconscious mind is can be considered as human soul or not? Hare Krishna.
Okay, if I understood the words properly, there was little bit the soul and the body. Are you asking the difference? Or
Between a consciousness and soul,
okay, so
human consciousness and soul.
there is no difference in the sense consciousness is a symptom, or symptom of the soul. Just like if there is a flower, then there is some fragrance. I may able to smell, I'm able to get some fragrance, very nice fragrance is coming. So if I go and see, okay, there is nice flower, so I'm getting the fragrance. So similarly, the presence of the soul is known by the consciousness, because we are conscious. Now somebody will come and, okay, Mataji, Anisha Mataji, thank you for joining, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Okay, somebody will come and pinch me, then I'll feel that pain. So that is because I'm conscious being. So this consciousness, this is a symptom of the soul, just like the flower, just like flower and the fragrance, the example we took. So similarly, the consciousness is a symptom of the presence of the soul.
Okay, Mataji, I understood. And Mataji, is human subconscious mind can be considered as consciousness? I have heard the word subconscious mind. So is it considered as consciousness? Hare Krishna.
Subconscious mind is like um, what, how can we say, something which you have seen, but you have not taken that much, given that much importance, but somehow you caught sight of a particular poster or something. You didn't pay much attention to it, but still your mind had um, you saw that, so somehow that was there in your mind. Maybe sometime something comes up and you may be able to remember that, but you never paid attention to it, but still you could remember it, something like that, subconscious. So it's not exactly consciousness, um, but it's we can say that um, our senses, we perceive something, we feel something, or we see something. So these images, or what sound we have heard, all these things are kind of saved somewhere in our memory or something, so that we can kind of understand, kind of a subconscious mind, or like that.
And Mataji, one more thing. Uh, as you mentioned that the magnitude of sound is 1 by 10 a second,
1 by
part of the
10,000.
tip of our hair. Yes. Then Krishna is so merciful that that magnitude of a soul can how can what I want to say is that our devotee can connect to Krishna even if the magnitude of the soul is so tiny, and he cares for every soul, even if we are so microscopic our soul is. So this is all the mercy of our Krishna only. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, that's true. Because we left him and came to this material world, but he doesn't leave us alone. He comes along and he is present with us, whether we are in a human body or an insect body or a plant body or animal body. So he's present side by side, the soul, the Paramatma or the super soul. He's present as the super soul just by the side of the soul. I mean, together with the soul. Whatever body we may take, but still he's present. So, yes, yeah, he's so merciful. That's so nice realization. It is so true, but we forget it. So Krishna consciousness, this process is a mercy of Srila Prabhupada that we are able to reconnect with our Supreme Father, our actual Father. We may say it's sweet home, our wherever we are staying, but actual sweet home is in the spiritual world, because here everything is temporary. So yes, he is so merciful. Thank you for sharing that, Mataji. Okay, so anything else before we close? If not, we'll close for now. Thank you so much, Matajis, for joining, for all your association. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Matajis, Dandavat Pranam.